I greet everybody virtually, and we have a talk about virtual reality, and I welcome XAOS Collective. They are trained architects, and it is Michal, Baurycza, I don't know if I pronounce it right, Mikolaj, Bazaczek, and Mateusz Niemirski, and they have worked with lots of very great people like Herzogenaurach, and for example also with Vitra, and now they have their own business, and I welcome you to be part of our 3D lecture this afternoon. My name is Karin for the guests who don't know me. I'm a professor for art and architecture, and we have this research team with Adi Grueninger, Adam Kiryk, and Nicolas Rolle. We are doing elective courses by Fach, Wahlfächer, and so on, seminars in 3D. And I give the word now to Adam, who invited the XAOS Collective. We have worked together, Adam and the collective, for the exhibition in Winterthur, where we did a beautiful VR presentation of the spaces, where we changed the spaces. So it was great to work together, and I'm very curious now to see the whole body of work that you have been doing.
Thank you, Karin, for welcoming words. Just a little introduction who XAOS is. Actually, Karin has already said everything about the most important things. We had, of course, pleasure to work together on several projects. They also have given us the lecture 2 years ago, I think 2019 or 2018. Yeah, we are familiar with their workflows. It was always very helpful to look at the state-of-the-art things that they are developing. They are also giving lectures. I mean, it's not their first time. They also give lectures worldwide on bigger events about 3D renderings, about architectural visualization and VR per se. So I hope that we will all gain a lot of insight about their experience, professional, and also maybe we'll talk about the possibilities and the potential for the future of this technology for architects, for designers, for artists. So it's very intense topic. It's developing incredibly quickly. So yeah, I'll just give the word further to Mikolaj, and he'll introduce himself and the company, the collective, and let's start with the main lecture. And one more notice maybe about the structure. I forgot almost about it. The lecture is divided into 5 main topics, but if any of you have got already an interesting question, you don't need to wait to the discussion. Just wait until the proper moment and ask a question. You can also use the chat so that you don't have to interrupt us. Mikolaj is also checking the chat, I guess. So the most convenient way, I would say, to ask questions before the discussion panel is to write it on the chat. Thanks once again, Mikolaj and Michal. And let's start.
Thank you, Karin. Thank you, Adam, for the kind introductions. Correct. We are here today to talk about 5 easy ways to VR in 2021. Our goal today is, after this talk, you will leave with the knowledge that with one click, basically, during 1 minute, you can transplant your 3D design in VR and basically walk around or inside of it. But before we start, a little bit about us, who we are actually. So as we already had the kind introductions, my name is Mikolaj. There is also Michal and Mateusz. Together we form the XAOS Collective, which is a small visualization company in Basel. So we deal with images, we deal with animation, we deal with VR. This is our everyday, let's say, stuff that we are doing. As Adam mentioned, we had the pleasure before of conducting some lectures here for ETH, and it was always a great pleasure, and we were able to share some of our real world experience with the students as well. So today, as mentioned before, we have 5 main topics. So one will be the short introduction about our past. So what is our experience? Where do we actually come from? What do we do every day? So we'll see that we are not just random people playing with this technology, actually have some kind of real world professional experience. Afterwards, if you have zero knowledge about VR at all, we'll introduce some basic topics. So you will learn and you will know what's important in, for example, when choosing a VR headset, if you want to buy one yourself. Afterwards, we'll take a look at some real world examples, both, let's say, more conceptual or design, focus on design, and some commercial ones. So this will be a good example of what you can do with this medium of VR. Yeah, there's many possibilities. How can you use it actually? Afterwards, we'll do a practical part. I have a VR headset here connected, so we'll get into these 5 easy ways, and it will be not just me talking about them. I will actually do them live on the stream, so you will see how easy actually it is today to export for VR or to view stuff in VR. And afterwards, we'll take a little bit a look in the future to see, I think, a couple of things that are worth paying attention to. As Adam mentioned, this space is changing really fast, and there's a couple of interesting things coming, I think. And as Adam mentioned, feel free to interrupt at any point, ask some questions. I actually don't have a chat window open, so if I will miss any message, Adam, can you let me know?
Of course, yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. So that's it. Let's get started. And afterwards, as Adam mentioned, we'll do a little bit of questions and discussion. This, let's say, talking part should take around 60 minutes. So we, XAOS Collective, we are now operating for a little bit about 2 years. We are all trained architects. So we have, let's say, master's degrees in architecture, but we are focused on doing visualization and CGI basically, and virtual reality as well. Our everyday job is to enable architects and designers to tell a story about their designs and projects in the best way possible, with images, with animations, with virtual reality. What we also sometimes do is like training or advice. So if somebody wants to go into this thing, learn themselves how to deal with these technologies, we also support these. And these days we see it's important, more and more important, to do some animation stuff. So we're also always trying out new tools and new techniques to deliver animation. And a lot of the tools that I will show today, they work with VR, but they also will work as animation rendering tools. Yeah, so I think it's very interesting that these technological advancements enable us to share more of the video, basically to explain the projects better and more in detail using the same technology, be it VR or animation. So our everyday job is to get a model from an architect, and then we produce images like this. So we take the model, we export it, we convert it to 3ds Max format, we set up the lights, we apply some materials, we suggest the furniture, or we suggest some materials sometimes, and then we render the final image. And afterwards, we take it and do some, add some magic in Photoshop. And this is, I could say, 80% of what we're doing every day. Yeah, this is still the main way of showing, of talking about the project. Not only architecture, but also, for example, boats, yachts, some objects as well. So this is our everyday thing. This is what we're doing as our own company for 2 years right now, more or less. But before that, we had the great pleasure of working for 5 years here in Basel for Herzog & de Meuron, where we were the part of design technologies team. This is a very special group within the Herzog & de Meuron office that it deals with basically what they do. It's also a group of specialized architects, but the way the whole office is structured, basically there is projects that are focused on designing the buildings themselves, and there's this other departments like your finance, HR, and so on, and there's also design technologies, and these are the guys that are super well specialized, for example, in 3D modeling or scripting or BIM experts and BIM managers. Also people that are very experienced with CNC, like digital manufacturing. Yeah, so all these people are not assigned to one project for the whole time. They are supporting every, let's say, week, or they're switching from different projects and enabling the people basically to use the digital tools in the best way possible. And also within design technologies, there's a group of that focuses on visualization and VR, on delivering high profile visualization. And this is where we had the opportunity to work on amazing projects and gain the experience, not only producing content such as visualization and VR, but also teaching people how to produce this kind of stuff, or letting them learn more about the rendering technology so they can understand better when they produce some images themselves. We'll come back to that when we show the examples, because we had the luck to join the HDM where there was virtually no VR being used in a normal design pipeline. And when we decided to leave, virtually anybody in the office could present their project in VR. Yeah, and this happened over the course of 5 years. So this was a little bit about us. Now I want to introduce you to some basic, let's say, conceptions, like concepts that apply to VR. So first of all, I think it's important to say that VR technology is not that new. Yeah, as a humanity, we always want to tell stories. We want to somehow transport people into other worlds, and we attempted this for a very long time. So you can see some examples of old technology. For example, these old panoramas that you would build the whole building, do a beautiful painting, and people could walk inside and be transported to a fantastic space. You have devices such as Sensorama from the 60s, which already did stereoscopic video. It introduced aromas, vibrations, other stuff. It was also designed to transport you into another world. Yeah, so this is coming back, and now the technology is good enough, I think, that we are it's hitting the mainstream basically. Yeah, because it's so simple to use and relatively cheap that virtually anybody can have access to this. So in order to be transported in a virtual space, what do we need? Like, first thing, of course, it's we need to display a different image for each of our eyes. This is the same as the 3D movies that you all know probably that you go to. This is one component. Another component that we need is we need to know where we are in space. Yeah, so this is what we usually call tracking. This can be done in multiple ways, but basically the headset itself, it always knows where we are. So as we are moving, it's displaying these two different images for each of our eyes, and therefore our brain is fooled. We have the illusion of a virtual space that is not there. So this is the two basic things that we need: stereoscopic vision and tracking. And now, if we look at the headset itself, yeah, you have two basic kinds of VR headsets right now on the market. Some of them are called standalone. That means they don't need anything else to operate. They have all the components inside. They can create a picture by themselves, and that's it. There's also a second kind that they need a computer. They are usually connected with a cable. You can call them tethered, or let's say PC-based VR. And this is the main division. But to add a twist to this, for example, the model that is shown on the left, that will also go later into like what VR headsets are there today on the market that are worth looking at. This one on the left, it's standalone, but you can connect with it a cable, as I did today, basically. Yeah, so it's the same model, Oculus Quest 2, but I have a cable here, and I can use it connected with the computer. So you have two options here. So this is also an important thing. If you want to buy a headset, like you want to buy a smartphone, to know exactly what you're looking for, what are the different attributes that you should be looking at. So that's an important division. Now let's take a little bit look at inside. let's say, what are other important things to pay attention to? If you are buying a new iPhone or a smartphone, you know, like how much storage does it have? This is probably something that matters, yeah? So these are these kinds of parameters that it's important to look at. One of the first is something that we want the most of is the FOV, so-called, that's field of view. Basically, this is how much we can see within the headset. So human vision is actually pretty wide. We have like around 220, let's say the range of vision, field of view. And this is including, of course, the peripheral vision, yeah? So, but the best, let's say the stereoscopic vision, where we can accurately perceive distance, is only around 120 degrees. So right now, most commercial headsets that are on the market are not yet fully filling our field of view, yeah? They are all around 100, 130 sometimes. You have some specialized ones that are rather expensive and, let's say, experimental, that have a really wide field of vision, but nothing yet is fully filling our view fully, not yet. But the bigger FOV, the better. This is what you want when you are choosing a headset. Of course, each one of these headsets will achieve this with different lenses, yeah? And this is also something worth looking at. Basically, the smaller and lighter the lens, the smaller and lighter the whole headset will be. But all of these lenses will have some trade-offs. Some of them will have certain artifacts, or some of them will have a big so-called sweet spot. That is like when you put on a handset, you can move it a little bit and the image will be still sharp if your sweet spot is big. If it's small, you will have to put it very precisely on to see a perfect sharp image, yeah? So this is also something worth looking at. You want lenses or a headset that has a big so-called sweet spot. Here you can see a comparison. On the left is a picture, like a photo from the lens from inside the headset, like a standard one today. And on the right is a wide angle one, yeah? So you can see, we can see way more here, but that also means some that we have to render a bigger scene, yeah, a bigger image as well. So this has some downsides, which we'll talk about later. So refresh rate, FPS. If you go to the cinema, you see a movie, it's 24 frames per second, and you see the illusion of motion, yeah, it's working okay. If you look at your iPhone, the computer screen, it's usually 60 frames per second. It's a little bit more. But for VR to work, for your brain to be fooled, to create the illusion, we need optimally more than 90 frames per second. Because basically when I put on the headset, I don't see anything else. And if we will go below 90 or 70, your brain will interpret this as some kind of visual problems. Probably you are poisoned and now is the time to throw up, yeah? So the more FPS you have, the more fluidity you have, the better. Optimally 90, even more. That's an important thing. Another term that's worth learning in this case is the so-called IPD, that is interpupillary distance. Basically, everybody has a different distance between their eyes. And this, if you have, let's say, a headset that cannot adapt to your IPD, to this distance, you will have a different sense of scale, yeah? Because this greatly influences your stereoscopic vision. So if you are buying a headset, it's very good if the IPD is adjustable, yeah? Usually this is done by moving the lenses or the screens. Some of the headsets don't have any IPD adjustment. They can also work well, but it's best if you can really adjust it to your own eyes. Now, we mentioned tracking before. This is how the headset knows where it is in space. And there is multiple ways to solve this as well. One of them is the inside-out tracking. That means the headset doesn't need anything, let's say any devices around it to find itself in space. Basically, for example, this headset Oculus Quest 2 that you can see in the corner here, it's also inside out tracking, and it has cameras that it looks around and finds the characteristic points in the surroundings, and therefore it's able to locate itself in space. But for example, if I turn the light off, it will not be able to work. There's also outside in tracking, which I will show you later an example of. Basically, that means we will need to place some devices in our room that will help the headset to find itself, so-called anchors or lighthouses in case of HTC Vive, for example. you will need to set up something else and usually connect it, for example, to the electricity as well. So this is the two main ways to do tracking today. So if you get all of this, yeah, if you have all of these ingredients, basically what you get is the virtual reality and what you get out of it. Why bother? Yeah, why do this at all? So for designers and architects, you will get, let's say, you can perceive your design naturally. Yeah, you don't have to imagine a 3D picture from a 2D picture. You will get one-to-one scale. So if something is 10 centimeters in VR, it will be 10 centimeters in reality if you will build this afterwards. You can communicate directly. So for example, if I'm speaking to a client or somebody that is not an architect or designer, he can instantly, intuitively see, yeah, and interpret the space. You don't have to explain, they don't have to look at complicated drawings. And to virtual reality, you can also add dynamic elements, interactive elements. Yeah. So if you want to have some dynamic sound, or if you want the environment to react to your actions, it's relatively easy to do this. So for example, if you put down the controllers and you know this distance should be something, yeah, it will be something in real world as well. So it's really one-to-one real world scale connection. So now let's take a look at a couple of headsets that are available today on the market. So for example, this one that we have right now here that I'm going to use during the presentation, it's coming from the company called Oculus. It's called Quest 2. And basically it's inside out tracking. So it has cameras, doesn't need anything else in the room. It has two controllers that can follow your hands. And you can also connect it to the computer if you want. Yeah. The one downside of this headset, it's technologically, I think, one of the best today on the market. But the downside is the Oculus, it's owned by Facebook. And to use this headset, you need to have a Facebook account and connect this to this device. So that's a huge downside for some people. But right now, this is one of the most advanced and one of the most, let's say, price-wise, more interesting headsets. So basically this you can get for $200 or $400 or Swiss francs today. And you can also connect it to a computer because in the base mode, it works by itself. It has a processor inside, everything. You can play games or watch some other stuff without using an external computer. It's also tricky, this one, for business use, for personal use. I think this is quite a good proposition, but they also in the terms, licensing terms, they don't really allow you to use it for commercial purposes. So for that, they have a separate thing, yeah, like a separate pricing and a whole separate program. If you want to deploy this in a big company, for example, you can do this, but we found out that it's quite difficult to get there. Yeah. So if you are looking, for example, to buy 5 headsets or 10 or 20 for your architectural office, maybe that's the way, but it's not so straightforward as going to the store and just grabbing it from the shelf. Another proposition, if in terms of headsets that are available today, it's Valve Index. It's made by the company that currently owns and runs the biggest digital game store on the planet, Steam. And they decided to create their own VR technology and a headset. Yeah. So this one has outside in tracking. So you need to place these 2 boxes, so-called lighthouses, somewhere in your room, fixed. The best way is to fix them, put them in one position and don't move them for a long time. And then what you get out of it is really very good image quality as well. This guy can go up to 144 hertz. This is the refresh rate. This is the how many FPS you can show. Yeah, we said before, the more the better. Like the minimum is, let's say, 90. This guy can do 144. And also what is unique about this guy is the controllers, because basically they are made in a way that they attach to your hands and you can do a throwing gesture, you can let go and they still stay attached. Yeah, so you can pick up items inside virtual reality really intuitively. What they also do is they track your fingers individually, so they know how are you moving your fingers, basically, yeah, without attaching any gloves or anything. So you can express yourself more in VR. So this guy, it's quite expensive, yeah. The previous headset was like 300, 400. For the whole set of this, you will have to pay around $1,000. So it's really more expensive, let's say, proposition. You need to set up these lighthouses. Yeah, so it's not so mobile as well, but it's an alternative to the basically Facebook owned technology as well. Now, if we go further, for example, you have Vario headsets that are extremely, let's say, relatively extremely expensive, around 6,000 euros. But in terms of technical stuff, they are really excellent. If we scroll down and we'll see the comparison picture, which you can see these kinds of picture on a lot of marketing sites, but I had the pleasure of testing these guys myself, and really like the picture quality, it's something really different. They combined very high quality screens inside. You have to pay a lot, but you really get a crisp image, and you can really, for example, read as very small text. So it's a proposition more for like very professional use. For example, if you're working, I don't know, for a car design industry, something like this. But you can get this kind of headsets as well. Many of you are probably familiar with the HTC Vive that I know, Adam, you have available at your place as well. So this is slightly older generation, but it's still a very capable headset. Yeah, you also get outside in tracking and these special controllers. So for example, if you have access to this, or you can, I think now you cannot buy them new, but if you can buy them used ones, or if you have access to it, it's also a very good, technical wise, it's a very good proposition to do. Microsoft is also working on their own VR standard. It's something called Windows Mixed Reality. So they created this standard, and then multiple manufacturers have prepared headsets for them. So you will find headsets from Dell, from HP, from Asus, and so on. These are, let's say, not so advanced as the two as I mentioned before, but they're also very good proposition if you're looking for something. And then last but not least, okay, for our users, it may be not so useful right now, but PlayStation also has their own VR systems. And this is now, let's say, quite old, but rumor is, or the official news is, they are working on a new generation of headset as well for the new PlayStation. And I think that's interesting. So there's a new one coming. And with all of this, what I wanted to communicate here, there is not only one VR headset on the market, or it's not only done by some experimental niche companies. You have the biggest companies in the world working on this tech. And if you ask me, it's here to stay. And before you buy one, it's always good to take a look and see what is there currently. Because as Adam mentioned before, this space is evolving very fast right now. So these are some of the examples that we have. Let's go back to the slides. What are the problems with VR? Yeah, basically, or the downsides today. So one thing, if you want to use it connected with your computer, you will need a powerful graphics card. Yeah, you don't need like super top of the line expensive ones. Let's say the middle ones will work as well. But if all you have is like, say, an older MacBook or something like this, this will not work sadly right now. You will need to upgrade. Yeah, so there is a certain cost involved in you have to put some money into the hardware for this to work. Basically, the more complex models you want to see, the better hardware you will need to get. That's one problem or downside. Yeah, let's say another thing that's that's not super problematic, but it's nice to be aware of it. That, for example, you know this effect that if you look at something in the distance with your own eyes, the things in the front of you will appear blurry. Yeah, your eyes focus on something in the that's further away from you. This effect cannot be replicated right now in VR. So you have the stereoscopic vision, you see depth, but actually in the headset, everything is, let's say, on a one focal plane. So your eyes will not be able to focus on different distances. Yeah, this is something that it's a hard problem to solve. There are people working on it, but right now, this effect of things becoming blurry naturally as you look in the distance, or let's say at something close, is not going to be replicated for now. And I think this is the part about the hardware. So hopefully after this short pill, now if you go to a store or if you ask somebody, you know what to look at when selecting a VR headset. Yeah, if you have any questions or something was not clear, feel free to interrupt or write the message in the chat here. Otherwise, we'll continue with some workflows and examples. So as we are working with this technology, we have noticed there's certain patterns or ways, yeah, that we see this VR being used. One of them is the, let's say, insights or review. When, for example, I, as a designer, I'm looking at my project in VR and getting some information out of it, checking out how stuff looks. Another pattern that we notice is like the client presentation. So somebody comes in and you want to show them the design, what you've been working on, but he's from the outside. Yeah, he's not actively working on the design. And then another use, it's of course the promotional, or let's say marketing, I don't know, usage that you don't want to anybody to be involved in the project. You just want to show them, yeah, or amaze them with what you can do this in this technology. What is possible today, it's also designing directly in virtual reality. Yeah, so you can now model or sketch or work on your design in VR. But this is something that we don't see so much in everyday use. Yeah, so I think it's nice to take a look at this and start introducing this in your everyday workflows. Now, let me give you some examples of these uses of VR. You'll see this is a very flexible medium, and you can do a very sketchy, drafty things, and they can still be useful, or you can go fully realistic and have a very detailed simulation, and this will also serve a different purpose. So in our case, when we are back at HDM, Herzog and de Meuron, the first real VR use case was a staircase. So the story goes like this. Basically, the team had a design meeting the next day and has come to this design technologies group to ask if it's possible to 3D print a physical model of this staircase, quite big, because they wanted to have a review of it. Sadly, this was not possible in such a short time. So instead, we proposed to them, okay, we have this new technology called virtual reality, and you can take a walk inside the staircase for the first time. And this was with a prototype headset. This was with a suboptimal hardware. So it was not this 90 FPS. Yeah, so it was not optimal, but it served its purpose. So basically within a day, we managed to get the model from the team and prepare such a presentation, such a simulation that they could walk inside this staircase. And we didn't know if it's going to be useful or not. This is like a new tool, nobody's used to it. But after the meeting, they came back with the info that actually this was really, really helpful. And people that were working on this for quite a long time, they said they were, it was very interesting for them to actually walk inside this space, yeah, and they noticed some things that they didn't notice before. So it really gave them information and insight that they were not able to acquire otherwise. So that was the first use, yeah. It was only for the internal, let's say, communication, but afterwards this technology started to be placed, for example, during a client meeting. You would have like prints on the walls, you would have your plans, models, physical models, but you would also have like a computer and a super old school VR headset with a super old school gamepad, and you could take a walk inside the project. Yeah, so this was the case that, for example, for this project, the client, if they wanted to, could take a walk inside the whole building and really see for themselves. This is again something that not everybody would do, because they, for example, would be a little bit scared of the technology, or they would say, okay, I don't need this in order to be able to understand the project. But in many cases, this has proven very useful, both in explaining and convincing the client or the person that was making the decisions that these design decisions that are being made are the right ones. So if we take a look a little bit how this works back in the day, this is like the small illustration of the workflow that we had at that time. So at the top half here, you can see what, let's say, a person that is not specialized in this technology can do, actually what you can do as well today. And on the bottom, these are all the steps that we had to do in order to be able to make this work. Yeah, so it was not one click. It was really like manual export, manual import, cleaning up, preparation. It was a very long process. So we had to go through all of this in order to get this virtual reality experience. Right now, if you look at the top, it's really one click. it may be not as customizable as the thing that you're building yourself, yeah, let's say, or as, let's say, I don't know, detailed as the one that you really handmade everything, but it will be good enough for many, many cases. So as the time progressed, the hardware changes, like it was moving very fast as it is today as well. So instead of a big computer, you can see now a laptop. This is also outdated right now because today, optimally, you don't need even a computer. Yeah, you can have like a standalone headset that has enough processing power to display a relatively, let's say, simple model, but you don't need a computer, you don't need cameras. You can do it very, very fast. Another case that goes more into this, let's say, we are going now away from this design loop, more into this show other people the final result of your design thing. Is, for example, for Roche, there was this 360 stereoscopic renderings prepared of the Baurycza, the high rise that's being built here in Basel. And this was then placed physically on the street, and anybody could walk in and look into these goggles and basically see how it will look like when the building is finished. Yeah, so you can take a look inside. There's a building site around this. You don't see anything yet, but by looking at this, you can imagine and you can easily see how it will be in the future. So these are the examples, let's say, within HDM that happened. As we had the pleasure and the opportunity to work there. After we decided to form our own company, I have two more examples for you that we did. One of them that Adam already mentioned, that we had the pleasure to work with Frau Karin Zander on the Winter Tour exhibition. And this is where the VR technology enabled the people visiting the exhibition to see the version of the building that was conceptualized by the artist, by Frau Karin herself. Yeah, so the ideal version was without dividing walls. You could walk freely through the whole building and see how it would look like. So in this case, it was prepared in a photorealistic manner, quite detailed, but it also had to be easy to use. Yeah, so virtually anybody could enter the museum, pick up the headset, start in this one space. You would start in the same space as you were physically in the museum, but then you could explore this as visualized by her. So that's one example where to achieve this effect of transporting somebody to this space, ideally it should be photorealistic. Yeah? Without this, we cannot really transport them fully maybe to this space. So in this case, this graphical, let's say, quality or fidelity was playing a role here as well. And if you want to do it, you can put some effort into it and it's totally achievable. Another example, more on the commercial end, is something that we work on for a company, the Lehman Group, that is working with. So this one, as I was speaking, was done for commercial purposes to show this modular system on an exhibition, because they didn't have enough space to actually place one-to-one scale unit there. And in this way, it also had to be in a photorealistic manner, because this is for, let's say, outside customers. They don't have necessarily the ability to imagine such a space from a simple rendering. And it worked quite well, yeah, to transport these people during Expo into to these spaces. So in this case, is what you can say, okay, maybe it's not full VR because you cannot freely move through the whole space. These are pre-rendered images, but as you can see, for different purposes, you have different solutions. And in this case, we think this was the best one. You don't need a full, let's say, range of motion here to be able to understand and see the value of this proposition, I think. So this was a little bit of the spectrum of what you can do with this technology, from, let's say, super fast drafty ones to more, let's say, polished and publicly released ones. And now what I want to do is to show you practically how can you do it yourself. So we'll have 5 or actually 7 different softwares to look at. First will be Enscape, which is a plugin for Rhino, SketchUp, and Revit. Then another software called Twinmotion, which is based on Unreal Engine 4, which we'll also take a quick look at. And these plugins, basically, with a one click, you can really walk inside your model, which you'll see in a second. Afterwards, we'll have a tool from Iceland called Archeo. And this guy is aimed at creating stuff directly in VR. So there you can collaborate, you can work easily in urban scale. And when you are happy with your sketch, export it and, for example, continue working in any other software. And at the end, we'll take a look at Gravity Sketch, which is the closest thing I know to Rhino that lets you create stuff directly in VR. And I will speak shortly about Tiltbrush and Krill, where you can sketch quickly some stuff, basically. So with that said, let's exit the full screen and let's go to Rhino. In Rhino, I have a demo scene provided by the Enscape team, which is maybe not the most, let's say, design-wise best piece in the world, but the model is quite simple and will serve our purposes easily. So you can see it's just opened in Rhino here. I have this Enscape toolbar. I have my VR headset connected, and it's basically when I press one button, this also has a free trial, which is, I think, very nice. And as I know, after you finish the trial, it will just display a huge watermark on your skin, but you can continue using it. Yeah, so if you want to play with it, you don't have to invest anything. Like, you can check it out for free, basically, if you have access to Rhino, SketchUp, or Revit, as far as I know. So we will take a short while to start the thing and to export the model. And this thing can also synchronize. So as you are working with your model in Rhino, it can keep updating the model itself. So right now you can see I'm inside in, let's say, a 2D mode. Yeah, so I can move around. But if I press a button, I will enable the VR headset. And now I will put on the VR headset. And hopefully everything is still working and you can see me on the screen, that I can actually take a look inside the model and walk around. Teleport myself, basically.
Das ist ziemlich gut.
Dass die so einfach die Daten schicken oder das sogar selber machen können.
Ja, genau.
Mit diesem Rein.
Yeah, as I heard, yeah, it's super easy to send the data. Yeah, basically you don't have to export, import anything. It works inside of Rhino. And what is also interesting, if, for example, somebody else was operating the Rhino right now, I could see the changes live. Yeah, so I would see the columns being moved on, or some other stuff as well. So this is one example. I will now not go in depth yet. There's a lot of stuff you can do. You can play with materials, with models from the library. You can alter the time of the day dynamically. But this is just to get you interested in this. Yeah, it's very intuitive, very easy to check out. So if you have the tools and you're interested, I highly recommend this one. So hopefully that worked. So that was Enscape. This is one of our risks. Yeah? Let's close this one. Another one we'll take a look at, it's Twinmotion. Let's go to the website maybe, because then you will see actually where this is coming from. At the end of the talk or in the email, you can also, there was also a link, and under this link, there are links to all of these tools and hardware that we mentioned today. So Twinmotion is basically the same thing. They want to enable you to visualize stuff fast, but they were at some point acquired by Unreal Engine, and they are using Unreal Engine today as well as a rendering engine. So it's the same concept. Should be one click and then we're inside. Yeah. So if I go back to Rhino, I have a Twinmotion open in the background already. And I get, after installing a plugin for Rhino, I get this option at the top, Twinmotion 2020. And the only thing I have to do is basically to click synchronize. Yeah. And then this Twinmotion application will ask me, okay, do I want to do a new project or maybe just import this stuff into an existing scene? And basically that's it. Now, it's not so fast as the previous one. You can see that now at the bottom here, Rhino is exporting some stuff and the Twinmotion will import it. This will take under a minute, but it's not as fast as the previous one. A little bit more about Twinmotion. So it's built on Unreal Engine, and there's also a way. Let's say the Twinmotion itself, it's meant to be very simple, but if you want a little bit more, there's also a way to get your model inside the full Unreal Engine and for example do custom scripting or really like go inside it and modify it a lot. Let me just interrupt for a second because I hear a weird beeping here. Do you hear it? It's something's beeping.
Yeah, but I think as long as it does not explode, it's good.
Let's hope it's not going to explode. I think it's our central data storage, which is not good. Okay, we can deal with it later.
Yeah, it's not a problem, I guess.
Oh, so now the model imported, and you can see it's basically the same thing. Yeah. So here I can change the materials, do some other stuff, and also export animations. But if I click on the view menu here, whoop, pardon.
One more thing to add, maybe before you go into VR, people might ask why the materials are different. It's just because of the scene that it was set for the endscape, I guess, right?
Correct. Yeah. So that's one thing. Let's say sometimes the material, as you see in the previous one, will get through perfectly. In this case, I'm not sure if you will not have to set. You can see some of them got through, yeah, like the concrete more or less, but the other ones not. So this is a per plugin. Also, Twinmotion has a super wide library of materials that you can just apply in the models, like in the model directly. But in some cases, you will have to redo some of the material work, basically. But this can happen rarely. So let me check it out as well in the VR. So hopefully this is working well. Let me check on the stream here if everything's properly. Yep. So now you can see it could be a little bit choppy because I'm asking my computer to do a lot, VR and capturing and sending over Zoom and all that stuff. But basically you can see I can also move around my model quite easily and check everything out in 1:1 scale. This is teleporting movement. But we can also play with materials. So for example, if I want to try out some wood, if this will work properly, I can just pick one and put it on this geometry here, yeah, and see directly inside the model. Okay, maybe it should be another kind or some other stuff. Of course, this requires you to set up your model accordingly, but after you have it done, it's super easy to take a walk inside. So that works as well. Because yeah, I cannot see your reactions or I cannot hear anything. So it's super hard to say if everything's working properly.
Everything was fine. We have seen.
So that's another way. These guys, as far as I know, Twinmotion is free for the educational users. And for some time, you could get it for totally free out of the Epic Games store. But if you're a student or like associated with an educational facility, you should have no problem. And as far as I know, there's also a trial available. So that was Twinmotion. So we have 2 out of our list. And now Unreal Engine 4. This was the tool that we used for the Winter 2 Kunstmuseum exhibition. And it's also quite easy. So after installing another plugin for Rhino, you will get an option to save it as a so-called uDatasmith file, Unreal Datasmith. And if we go back to the website, we'll see that this is the solution that they have to really bring inside the Unreal Engine data from ideally every CAD software on the planet. Yeah, so they are supporting a lot of stuff. 3ds Max, Cinema 4D for, let's say, this is not strict CAD software, but still, IFC, Rhino, Katia, SolidWorks, so cars, I don't know, object designs, all of this, it's also relatively easy to bring inside Unreal. So this should be a one-click solution. Yeah. So after, let's say it's the same process. Yeah, I will save now this as this uDatasmith file. Let's say as a 3. It will again take some time, but basically this completes within a minute or so. And if we go back inside Unreal, I have the scene that I tried to import earlier, but we can create a totally new empty scene as well. And now I have this big button on the top called Datasmith. And after I click it, it will ask me to select a file. So I will click on the file that will just got exported. It will ask me where I want to place it. I don't care at this point, so I'll just put it in the main project folder. You have a little bit of more options here because the Unreal Engine is really complex tool. Yeah, this is the same tool that all the AA games like your Fortnite, your professional games get built in. So you can build whole worlds basically with it. So there's a little bit more to learn, but if you're interested, if you really want to, for example, create a virtual space with a lot of detail and music and sounds and interactions, this is the tool that you are going probably to use, either this or, for example, Unity, which is also another option for this kinds of stuff. In our daily work, we use mainly Unreal because of our experience, and also we feel that it's easier to get a high quality visual fidelity out of it. Yeah, for Unity, you have to really know a lot more technical stuff in order to be able to build something. So we got the model in right now, but you can see that it's not looking as good as in previous ones. That's because we don't have any lights in the scene. So you can see already this is a little bit more complex solution, but right now, basically we got the stuff in, and if you know Unreal, you can make anything out of it. And what is interesting, Unreal also has a VR editor mode, so you don't have to, let's say, do anything complicated if you just want to check it out. I can just enable the VR mode, and we should be able to check it out in VR as well. Let me put on the headset really fast here. So hopefully now you can see what I'm seeing. And this works quite differently because basically what you get right now is the full editor. Yeah. So if I want, for example, to select and move this element here, I can do it super easily. In previous plugins, if you wanted to move something, you basically had to go back to Rhino or to the modeling software of your choice. But here, you can start, for example, you can prepare some blocks or some modular elements, and you can start putting together whole projects, yeah, or levels or whatever you want to create out of this. Of course, it takes a while to learn this tool. It's like, imagine if you are for the first time using mouse and keyboard, yeah, it will also take you a couple of hours, if not days, to become fluent with these tools. And this is a new kind of input and a new kind of, let's say, seeing things. So give yourself a little bit of time and really try to take it easy and learn to use it if you are interested in this kind of stuff. Okay, so this was a short look at Unreal Engine. Let me take off the headset. Let me know, Adam, if this also works properly.
Yep, everything is fine.
Beautiful. Let's exit the VR mode. Yeah, so we're back in our scene again, and I think everything that we moved, yeah, inside VR, you can see it stayed there, yeah. So you can really work in this mode as well. So that was Unreal. That was 3 easy ways. Let's say if you have a project already, if you're working on something and you want to walk inside of it, this is 3 easy ways you can do it today without much effort. Let me close this one, so I will not be using my computer's resources in the background. And the next 2 that we want to take a look at enable you to basically create inside VR. Yeah. So one of them is this Archeo. You can see a short video here. This is also interesting because they enable collaboration. So basically you can do multiplayer. Yeah. If you want to have 3 people anywhere in the world working on this design, you can do it quite easily. And I think as far as I know, these guys are in beta stage, and they're available for free on many platforms. So it's really not difficult to get this. So the one that I want to show you today, it's working via Steam. You can just go to Steam or go to the website if you don't have Steam and download this for free. And it will start up now. And let's see. Well, looks like it's working properly. I can see my amazing sketch from a previous test session. It got loaded, beautiful. Let me put on the headset again. Grab my controllers. And this guy, okay. Adam, can you be my link to reality?
Yep, I'm here.
Beautiful, everything is working. So you can see this is like a model scale, yeah? And I can start, for example, cutting a hole or like doing an extrusion here. It's really easy. I want to sketch some beautiful high rise in the middle of Reykjavik, which is this little church, I think. Amazing stuff. And now I designed my future building and I want to see how it's going to be seen from the perspective of the street. So I can just go into 1-to-1 scale, yeah? Now I can see my amazing intervention. Let's move a little bit over here. And this, as you can imagine, you can do with multiple people. Yeah, so I can be working on the high rise here and somebody else can be working somewhere else. And I can still see them working and see the results in real time. You can see this is quite simple, let's say style wise or graphic wise, but this makes it also really easy to render out. Yeah, so my computer is not struggling trying to render like photoreal stuff. Basically, so I can go back, I can fluently change the scale. Yeah, so I know now it's 1-to-10. Okay, maybe I want to see it back again in 1-to-100. Yeah, like a 1-to-100 model. Okay, looks quite nice. You can also sketch, as you've seen here. You can also place trees if you want, really fast. And what it's also, I think, very nice. So if this stayed here, it wouldn't be very useful, but it's relatively easy to click export, and you can export directly to Revit if you want. You can export to OBJ. It will freeze for a second, and now we can come back and take off the headset and we can check out what got exported out of it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hopefully everything is still working.
Yeah, we have you.
So if I go to the Archeo folder, if I go into export and if I go into models, and if I will see these ideally sorted by date, we can see our amazing scene. And now if I open Rhino really fast, you will see that, for example, you can sketch, you can do these blockouts really fast and check how it looks 1-to-1 for your urban designs or for the, for example, the initial stage of your project. Yeah, when you're doing massing, this could be useful. So now if I drag and drop the OBJ, standard import settings for Rhino, and you can see that our amazing intervention, it's already there. Yeah, so of course, sadly, this is OBJ, so this is not native Rhino geometry. Yeah, but I think it's already very useful that you can snap to it, you can model on top of it, you can keep working on it as meshes in other software if you want to. You can see that, let's say, if you do a sketch on top of something, if you take a note in VR, it also gets exported. Yeah, so really, you can do a lot of conceptual stuff directly in 3D. Yeah, you are working on a tridimensional design. Yeah, why not start working on it in 3D? So that was Archeo. Guys, feel free to interrupt me if there's any questions or anything was not clear. Otherwise, Gravity Sketch. So if you like Rhino, if you like the smooth surfaces that you can design within Rhino, if you like the precision of it, yeah, like you can do a surface in Rhino and it's described with the infinite precision, basically. This is the same approach, but these guys built it from the grounds up as a VR software. Not only VR software, as far as I know, because you can also work with it on a flat screen without a VR headset, but this was built with the same, let's say, objectives and purposes, very similar purposes as Rhino. So it can also create NURBS, the same thing that Rhino is doing. And as far as I know, in the Pro version, in some versions, it could also export and import to Rhino directly. So let's resume the last session that I had. So you can see again, let me put on the headset and show you a little bit of what's doable very fast in this. 1, 2, 1, 2. So now I'm also always a little bit confused because every of this software has a totally different control scheme. So it takes a little bit to learn this. So what I want to do, for example, if I want to sketch a volume, I can just select a volume and I can just paint basically with my hand here, and then it will create this shape as I go. Yeah. What else we can do? If I want to do, for example, a surface, yeah, I will get this virtual tool here. And if I want to create something with 6 degrees of freedom, that means as I'm moving my hands, yeah, I can move it and rotate it anyway. I will get something like this. I can easily move and rotate and also scale the model hill. And you see like this kind of a shape, if I wanted to model it in Rhino on a flat screen, takes you a while to do it. Yeah, if you want to do it, let's say, in a very specific way. What else we can do this? We can also do, for example, revolution. Yeah, so this is like the, let's say, as if I'm working in clay, or it's automatically creating these shapes for me out of my simple sketch. Yeah, and with this, again, doing this in a classic way would probably require you to set up some profiles, yeah, to set up a spline, then revolve it. And here you can do it intuitively with your hand, basically, as in physical world, and take a look at the end result really fast. Yeah, so maybe this is a cool, I don't know, ceramic design or whatever you imagine. Of course, this is just like a brief introduction. Yeah, this tool is super powerful. I think one of the most powerful for drawing directly in VR or modeling directly in VR. But sadly, I'm also not yet a pro user of this, so I'm not able to show you a complete car design made within this tool, for example. Whoop, let me take off my headset. So hopefully this worked as well.
Yep, we have seen everything.
Awesome. Gravity Sketch. Yeah, if you like Rhino, this is the thing you should check out. It's also free on Steam, as far as I know, and on other platforms as well.
There is one question on the chat.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a general one, not to the topic that you were talking about now. You can open the chat, and but I will read the question loud maybe. There are limitations regarding the mesh resolution and number of triangles for rendering in VR headset. Mm-hmm. What is the best practice for optimized visualization without compromising the resolution of the mesh and level of detail groups? I think you can go really quickly on that, because we can go back to the question in the discussion, just to react to the question, I would give a very short answer, I would suggest.
No, so this is a very good question, because this is what's basically limiting you. The more triangles you have, let's say, basically the harder it is. So a usual practice that it's used, for example, in VR games today is what you mentioned, very aggressive LOD optimization. That means as we move far away from an object, basically we're not seeing it in such detail, yeah? So we can show it, we can switch this model from this super detailed version to a little bit less detailed version. And as soon as we get super far away, then it's really super simple. This is called LOD, yeah, level of detail groups. And some programs will do it for you. I don't know how these plugins operate, Enscape and Twinmotion, for example. I think they don't do it for you automatically. So for example, if you put a super complex model in them, they will slow down. But for example, Unreal Engine has something called automatic LOD optimization. That means you can set some parameters, or you can use you can do a one click and it will create these simplified models for you. As soon as you get further away from them, they will switch out to simpler versions. Yeah. So let's say if you have these issues, one thing would be taking a look at the solution like Datasmith, which is aimed at this. Yeah, for example, if you are working in Katia or I don't know, SolidWorks, you usually have super precise models, yeah, super heavy models when you export them. And these guys are within this pipeline are trying to do exactly this. For example, remove some details that you will never see. You don't need maybe every screw or every opening that you have in your model in order for it to be useful. Yeah, so there's many ways to do it. One way is to optimize it and ideally optimize it automatically. There's also another solution that is coming soon that I will talk about maybe later, because this is the future part. So hopefully soon we'll not have to worry about optimizing geometry. Yeah.
That's why I would take it to the discussion about the future and the potential of the VR, because it's somehow more connected to it.
Yeah.
So let's continue with the sketching stuff.
So that was Gravity Sketch. Again, check it out. Allow yourself for, let's say, I don't know, half an hour to learn the thing, yeah, because it's again a totally new interface that you need to discover how to use efficiently. So take a little time. And two last solutions that I want to talk about. I will maybe not launch them because they are, let's say, pretty approachable and two very similar softwares. This is Tilt Brush from Google that recently, I think, got open source. That means Google is no longer developing this, but anybody can take the code and improve this. So basically, you can sketch within 3D, yeah, with your hands. This is not a professional modeling application. This was designed as a really easy way for people that have no experience with VR to go inside and create something, yeah, not only play games or not only consume content, but actually be able to create something. So if you have an idea in mind, yeah, if you don't need to model stuff, you can really go in and very quickly sketch out, for example, your design, yeah. And it's also one-to-one scale. You can also zoom around and move around. So, and afterwards, Tilt Brush, as far as I know, and the next software that I will talk about, they both have export capabilities, yeah. So you can take a sketch, a literal 3D sketch, put it inside of your favorite software and start building on top of it, yeah, if you want. And another software coming from Oculus itself, it's Quill. It's the same, let's say, principle. You are illustrating in VR, in 3D, but this one is more oriented towards storytelling, yeah. So really people are creating short movies in it or like short sequences. It has also animation capabilities. So if you are into this, you can do like frame by frame animations and create little short stories that are, let's say, in VR out of this. And it's very enjoyable. And again, a lot of people are using this combined with other software. Yeah, so you can, for example, export out of this animated file and enhance it in other softwares or like build on top of it if you want. And get short movies out of these scenes, for example. So I think these are the most interesting softwares today to take a look at if you're interested in easy way of let's say, playing with VR. Yeah. So that first 3 ones, or let's say first 2 plugins, can enable you to explore your design really fast. Unreal Engine 4, if you want to tinker, if you want to build, if you are like more this type that wants to dive deep and learn a totally new tool and create your own worlds, go for it. And then Archeo and like Gravity Sketch, Tiltbrush, Quill, if you want to, let's say, change your workflow or improve your workflow and start working on a 3D objects inside 3D. Yeah, so you don't have to use your brain power to imagine how it will look in 3D. You can make your brain work less on this and focus on the design, for example. Yeah, so you don't have to keep translating from 2D to 3D. You can do it intuitively. Yeah, you can sketch a thing and see, okay, how does it feel for me? I think this is really changing something, as we've seen with, let's say, computer revolution. Yeah, as soon as we got computer-aided design, we are able, as a society, as a humanity, to create way more complex structures. Yeah, because we don't have to take care of so many things manually. And I think this is again an opportunity for this. Your brain can now design in 3D or think in 3D directly. Yeah, what types of creations will come out of it? Yeah, because for sure the tools that you're using to design, I think, greatly influence the end product. Yeah, if it's easy to make boxes in Revit, a lot of buildings are going to look like boxes. Yeah. So I think that covers the 5 easy ways to VR in 2021, the 5 easy way how to actually make it work. And I wanted to talk a little bit about what's next, and afterwards we can transition to a free discussion basically. But a couple of things worth looking at, I think, is what we mentioned a little bit right now. Yeah, I guess back when the, let's say, CAD was first introduced, a lot of it was not perfect. Yeah, the hardware was slow, and you could say, okay, I will do it by hand on this my mechanical board. I will do it faster and better than doing it with a computer. Yeah, and today you can hear the same argument, like, okay, why do I need to bother with this? Like, I don't need these tools. I can do a perfect design with my sketches, with my CAD, with my 3D modeling. I don't need this. Yeah, but as soon as these tools will improve and will continue to get better, if you stay within this mindset, you will end up as these guys. Yeah, let's say, not learning the computers because they knew the tools that they knew already perfectly and they didn't want to improve. Yeah, so I think it's, if you're an architect, or let's say somebody working with design of any in any way working with design, my personal opinion is, if you are let's say good conceptually and you know a lot of stuff, but you are not fluent with the tools, you will be able to express yourself less than somebody that knows the tools very well. Yeah, and they can visualize something in their mind and also execute it. So I think that's a really important part, and this revolution is kind of happening now. So the sooner you get inside of it, I think the better or the easier it will be to adapt to the new ways afterward. We see it already in architecture. I think a lot of let's say companies or even requirements for the architectural designs are not longer, let's say, 2D drawings. You're supposed to deliver a 3D model, yeah, a BIM model, for example. So it's also, you can see that trend is shifting there. Another thing I want to briefly talk about is Facebook, or these guys, you see them investing a lot in VR, yeah, and why they are doing this. My personal opinion on this, again, is that they missed a little bit the mobile revolution. So when smartphones happened, they did not invest so much in this technology. And the result is Apple and Google right now are dominating the market. Yeah, Facebook is there, but they don't control the platform. So if one day Google or Apple say to Facebook, you go out of the Apple Store, or like you go out of the Google Play Store, they have no control on this. So they want to have control, and that's why they are investing a lot. And for me, this is very conflicting, because they are really doing very amazing progress on technology itself. They are investing a lot and providing amazing devices for an amazing price, but this comes with the trade-off. Yeah, they want to control the platform, and they are the company that deals with basically selling, let's say, private information about you. Yeah, and using VR will provide in the end a lot of information about you, because your hand movements, in the end, maybe your eye movements, what you're looking at, how long you're looking at this. You can imagine, like, you can start thinking, if they control the platform, they have a lot of influence over this. So this is scary and amazing at the same time, yeah, because they have the power, they have the resources to really push this technology forward. But the way they operate also makes you think, okay, where this is going, yeah, in the end. If you look at Apple as well, you know, you may be aware they have something called ARKit, which is, let's say, a package of software that makes it relatively easy, for example, to anchor stuff in the real world, to do these applications when you look through an iPhone or an iPad and you see stuff in the real world. And some people are betting that this is just like a test platform for their version of AR headset or VR headset, yeah. So basically, they are using this as a purpose for developers to start producing stuff, and when they are ready, they will release their own technology. And looking at hiring patterns, at the, let's say, what is happening inside, coming from the leaks. Of course, this is rumors only for now, but looks like they are working on this kind of device. And my personal opinion is, if Apple usually waits a long time until some technology is ready, and maybe does not do it first, but they do it really well, yeah. So if they are thinking of joining this market, I think the AR or VR thing, you can no longer consider this as a niche thing. Yeah, it's starting to go inside the mainstream. So Apple, Facebook now, if I say light fields, if this doesn't ring any bell to you, that's okay, because it's also a new thing. Light fields, it's a method of capturing, let's say, reality in a volumetric way. Yeah, so if we do a photo, okay, it's a single point perspective. If you capture a light field, you basically capture a volume, a little space that you are able to move inside around. So Google is working on this as well. And what you're seeing now on screen, it's basically animated light fields. So they had a special device that can capture a small sphere of animated content, and you can freely move inside it. Yeah. So these are, for example, of course, movies that are changing perspective a little bit, but this type of content you can also use with a VR. Yeah. So volumetric video. Yeah. This is like science fiction stuff, but actually now Google is working on making this usable for normal people, because as you can imagine, for example, if we say digital video, yeah, like everything, like YouTube, stuff that we use every day, this was invented a long time ago, and it took a long time for the hardware to be able to do it everywhere. Yeah, so everybody can have a smartphone that can play digital video. And with this, let's say, light fields or volumetric video, it's a little bit like this. It gets invented right now, but nobody has a, let's say, a device to capture it easily. Nobody has a device to view it easily. But I think in the following, let's say, years, it will become more and more, hopefully more and more common, yeah, to create this type of content and to be able easily to see it. Light fields, something to take in mind. And back to the question about geometry, because this is upgrades coming to Unreal Engine that we mentioned before. Yeah, Unreal Engine 4 is now on the market for quite some time. And the guys that are creating it, Epic Games, decided to do a major upgrade this year. And they basically changed the way the engine works at a very, very low level. Yeah, so they went in really, really low and basically recreated a thing that is responsible for processing geometry. Because as we said before, this is the question from before. Let's say if you have such a model, the normal usual practice today, this is, let's say, too heavy for our computers. So we would reduce the detail of the mesh, and maybe all this fine detail would get baked into the texture or something like this. And with their technology that they are promising to release this year, so we can say if all the hype is real, it's basically going to take care of it. So how they want to work, what you're now seeing on the screens, let's say every point that's colored in a different way, it's a triangle. Yeah. Before this, let's say, density of information was not possible. Yeah. What they want to do is to take this, let's say, manual workflow out that you have to optimize by hand and create LODs and all of this. And this happens in engine automatically. So what you do, you throw it in, let's say, super high detailed meshes, and everything's taken care of. That's the promise. That's the technological demo that they showed, and people say it looks legit, that it's true, but we can only say when they will release it, yeah, if it's really the promise that they are delivering. What they also want to do is to create a dynamic lighting system. So for now, for example, in a lot of cases, you have to bake the lighting. That means render it beforehand to get a good result. What they're also providing, saying that they're going to provide in this update, it's a very realistic dynamic lighting system. Yeah, so no longer you will have, again, wait and pre-process some data. You should get a natural lighting solution out of the box, basically. And you can see there's some interesting trailers that if you look later, they put really detailed 3D scans or really detailed 3D models inside in thousands, and they will able to render them easily, yeah, without any major, let's say, optimization or processing. It's all happening automatically. So I hope right now the answer to this question is LODs, but let's hope that in half a year, this method will be outdated and we can put as much stuff as we want, and let's say the computers will take care of it for us. So these were the couple of things I think worth looking into the future. And without further ado, that is all the content that we have prepared today for you. Hopefully now you have no excuses to say, okay, VR is complicated, I don't want to do it because it's like so difficult to do. Now you have no more excuses. If you have access to a headset and a computer and you're interested, you should really go and just do it. There is no excuses right now. And yeah, if you have any questions, if you have any suggestions, now I think it's the time.
Yeah, thank you very much for this almost workshop-like lecture.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you, Mikolaj. Very good to see also into the future.
Yeah, I have prepared. It's hard to do. Normally you would get an applause, but somehow I got it on my phone.
Beautiful.
Yes. Yeah, I think that you have
created artificially the applause.
it was almost like virtual reality that we have played.
Yes.
Thank you once again. You have gone very technical into very small details, but I guess that we had almost 90 people in a peak. Now I think we have something around 70 people listening. So probably they come from very different fields. So it's nice that you have gone into details, but at the same time we got a very broad overview of the technology. It's easy, it's really accessible, but of course you have shown a lot at the time. So for everyone that would like to watch it again, we have recorded the whole session, so you can ask us for the video afterwards, or also XAOS Collective. Just write us an email. We will also upload it on our website or on YouTube, so it's going to be available to watch again. Yeah, thank you once again. If anyone has got questions, then feel free to ask. I have a few questions, of course.
In the meantime, for example, you can say, okay, VR headsets, wow, they're so big, yeah. But actually, if you take out everything that's, let's say, making it comfortable for your face, this is the VR headset, yeah. Like it's not so big anymore, and it's going to only get smaller and more comfortable. Yeah,
there is one question from Claire. Which program or workflow would you recommend that supports a physical engine, so physics engine, so that you could animate falling objects, particles, and so on? That's also a very technical question, but maybe you can answer also a little bit broader.
No, I think if you want to have like a physics simulation inside, I think for now, two easiest answers are Unreal and Unity again, whichever is more comfortable for you, or maybe you already know some of it, because basically these have this physics thing built in. Yeah, you can import a model, you can check a checkbox, enable physics, and it will be simulated in real time. Yeah, so we can also go inside and, let's say, play with it or create these simple physics simulations. Of course, depends on what you want to simulate. Yeah, if it's like super detailed and super complex, then these engines are built for games. Yeah, not for like correct physical simulations, for example. But if you want to have some basic interactions, I think these two are very good solutions that are free and easy, relatively easy. There's a lot of, let's say, material that shows you how to do it relatively easy. Yeah, a lot of documentation and YouTube videos to do this, I think. Yeah. If I got the question correctly, yeah? If you want to simulate, let's say, a flowing water, that's not the answer, for example.
Yeah. I would have a question from different field, but somehow perfectly matching what we are doing in a chair and what Karin is also working on. Museum exhibitions, VR, and somehow partly the actual situation with coronavirus. Mm-hmm. What do you think? How did it influence, or how it will influence the exhibitions in general, not only in museal spaces, but also in general, how we exhibit, how we showcase our works? What do you think? What do you presume?
Yeah, I think it's a big topic, yeah, because on the one hand, VR was being used very much on different kinds of exhibition and expos that you would go to physically. Yeah, you would visit the space, there would be a headset or there would be something else and you could experience this. And of course, this with the current situation is not an option because like hygienic reasons and like all the restrictions and so on. So this is for now gone. We don't see this activity anymore right now. But on the other hand, the sales of the VR headsets are going up, or you see some events transitioning into a virtual space, basically. Let me see. I wonder, there's an event, for example, in Berlin that in 2020 or 2021, they decided to switch totally into a virtual space. I may be mistaken. I don't have the example right now, but basically what they did, they built a virtual space that was basically running like a game, and you could join anywhere from the world. You would see other people, yeah. You would have this sense of being in a common space, but it would be totally virtual. So I think the technology is not there yet, but you can already see in the link that I've sent, there's a couple of interesting links, and there's also, for example, an example of Museum of Fine Art in VR, yeah. So if you cannot exhibit your stuff physically, you can do it in a virtual space, yeah. And that means, okay, anybody with a headset can have access to it. You can also make it a common experience with network, yeah, with multiplayer interactions. I think this is going to come anyway, but what is required for this is like more and more people having access to VR headsets, for example. Yeah. So if this becomes a viable option, you can see you can reach millions of people, then more and more, I think, people will do it. And connecting to the exhibitions, let's say, this is one thing, but also architecture, or how do we design these spaces that you exhibit this in? Yeah, it could be a white nothingness, but it could also be a designed space, and you no longer have physical constraints. Yeah. So how do is that design such a space? So I think in this area we will see a lot of movement and a lot of let's say changes soon. And I think for architects this is also something that's interesting. Yeah. This profession, or let's say the skill of being an architect, but in virtual space. This is not something that everybody can do. Yeah.
Yeah, and it is interesting that you can create also, even if you are physical in a space, you can create in that space, as in Winterthur, another exhibition. You have two exhibitions overlaying each other with two different realities, which is in a way, you have seen a space and then you see the same space virtually completely differently in different proportions and so on. So you can really go as close as possible to objects that you normally cannot do. And then you can also change these objects. You can just make them smaller, bigger, or put another head on top of it, and work with history, applying different kinds of sculptures and works. So you can really, as you showed, you can create stories, you can change the objects, you can change the spaces, you can change the exhibitions according to your concept. And this opens up a complete different kind of exhibition.
That's also, it could be interactive, yeah. It could be made in a way that people go inside and can, as you said, directly alter the exhibition, yeah, or like
Yes.
play with it, or do, let's say, make a small thing by themselves, yeah, put a part of themselves inside, for example, yeah.
Yeah, and especially as architects normally have a hard time to make exhibitions. I mean, they can just show models or maquettes, which they are mostly bored of, so they can really create some reality to be really in the space in Bangkok, and in the next second they could walk through the space in Istanbul.
Correct. Yeah, the limitation. This is also, I think, interesting, because you don't no longer have to build it. It's no longer so expensive to have one-to-one representation, and you can really try to express yourself way faster than normally.
Yeah, we have a question from Orkun and from Elias. Orkun was first, so let's go to him now.
Thanks, Adam. And thank you for the presentation. A quick question. So you showed in the beginning this example from Sensorama, which from the 60s. So this topic of integrating other senses into the whole AR, VR experience was already kind of developed back then. So my question is, how can we actually, or have you been in projects where you try to integrate other senses, like other design inputs such as thermal comfort or acoustics and other things into the project, or are there other, let's say, softwares or platforms that enable this? Thank you.
Hi, good question. I think there's multiple ways to answer, but one, let's start maybe with the sound, because sound is also pretty accurately simulated, because what you get the information where your head is. You get a separate, let's say, headphones for left and rear. So actually the sound simulation is pretty advanced in VR as well, because you get this information where you are. Yeah, so you can really, if you want to, right now there are tools, relatively easy. You can simulate accurately how this space would sound like in real time. Yeah, so you change something, you move something, and then you hear the echo altered. I think there are a couple of, let's say, we have personally not worked in a project that would involve this kind of other sensations, apart from, let's say, touch or, let's say, physicality. Because one interesting thing you can do, let me find the link to it, because, okay, now we are talking about fully virtual spaces, yeah? And this is like, if you want to walk through a wall, nothing is there to stop you. Yeah, but there are ways to synchronize the physical with the virtual, and this is quite interesting approach that we tested out ourselves internally. So basically, what you get, you can make the physical representations of something from a very simple material and overlay like virtual images on it. But if you grab and touch, let's say, or this in VR, you will really feel something exactly there. Yeah, and this is something totally different, because you can really overlay total different space on top of another, but it's still physical. Yeah, so it's a totally different connection. If you are interested, I highly recommend to test this out. It's quite a challenge to synchronize the physical with the virtual, but let's say the emotion, the feeling that you get out of it, it's really something else. Yeah, in this case. So this is an example in a museum world of an exhibition that recreated, I think, the first photography exhibition animation. So you get these VR headsets, you get into this special set, and then you can really see, or let's say experience it as it was a couple of, more than 100 years ago. Yeah. Other senses, there's some smell attachments, that have like different smell cartridges, and they're able to synthesize these. Or you've seen probably some simulators that you can be flying as a dragon, and there's a fan in front of you, so you feel the the air. Let's say this is more or less a gimmick, but there are ways to do this, And for example, Unreal Engine and all of these, let's say, accessories usually provide a way to work with them with the most used tools. That means Unity or Unreal Engine. If you want to do something weird with smells or something else, there's probably a plugin for this software as well. So it should be relatively easy to use.
Yeah, thanks. We have Elia. He wanted to also ask something.
Yes, thank you. Well, thank you for the nice lecture. I was very interested as you kept speaking. I remember this instance in my first year of architecture where there was one student skilled enough to actually set up this virtual reality model using 2 iPhones, and then literally gluing together some frame to actually have this be passed around. And he got like the best grade possible, partially because it was a cool design, partially because it was just way ahead of everyone else. And then Adam, also, I was with you in the studio 2 years ago, and I remember you having this tablet where it allowed you to sketch digitally, where we're all still trying to sketch from hand. And this is making me wonder, as we're still taught to use a pencil and paper in the first year of architecture, how do you think using a different set of tools might change the design output? Like, we know Rhino and Grasshopper and parametric design will change the shape of our architecture, but then also the workflow changes using different tools. So still, I mean, we have these companies today that render for architects, and we have companies that produce virtual tours or animations. So in the end, it's always not 100% clear. I mean, you can have an architectural degree, but not produce architecture, but still be within the same environment. Like, where do you see this tool becoming more handy also, maybe accessible, you said, because it's not a small investment? You need a good computer, you need the headset, you need the software, you need, like, by the end of the day, you'll have spent a lot of money to be where you are as an office, I suppose. So where do you think architects can use this on like a daily workflow basis to like improve their storytelling, their narrative, their content?
Super good question, and it's a very wide question as well. I have only my personal opinion on this. This is not something that's, let's say, research right now. I don't know actually, but this is my personal opinion. I think this is another tool in your toolbox. This is not something that will replace sketching in 2D, for example, because it's still way faster and let's way easier to, on a super early stage, to, let's say, try to sketch something in 2D. The same maybe, I think, let's say, for example, with CAD drawing, it's way faster to draw some walls and to draw some boxes in Revit than do it in VR. So this is not something I think that will replace these tools. So I think it's still relevant, like to have skills in drawing, in sketching, to have like all this stuff that you're being taught in the educational process. I think they are still relevant. You can ask how much is relevant if you have to draw the whole floor plan by hand with a pencil. This is what I was being taught on first year, for example. And you can say, okay, this is useless right now, but I think it also taught me some, let's say, respect, or I see now how this was being made in the past. And now I know what are the, let's say, things that we use today, or the workflows that we have today are coming from this as well. So I think it's important to know this, to understand where we're coming from. So I don't think it's going to replace something, like Rhino or 3D modeling. I think it's going to be one more thing that can enhance your ability to express yourself. And now, let's say, talking about the cost, true, it's not let's say, super cheap, let's say, but it's not thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars as it was before. Yeah, this is really, if you have a decent laptop, let's say, that has a graphics card that you can play some, let's say, modern games on it. Many of people have this already. Then you can already invest 300 or 400. Okay, this is also, for some people, this will be a lot, but it's not thousands of dollars again. If you can afford a smartphone, you can probably afford a VR headset today as well and start using it, even if it will be not top, let's say you cannot put the whole world inside, yeah? And as to how this will improve, or like how can you use this to improve your storytelling, I think this is something that's evolves right now. I don't have answer for you, like direct answer here, because what we've seen is mostly is this being used as a help, yeah, after the design is done, or when you model, let's say, in other software and you check. So we've seen people, for example, noticing issues that they were not so easy to notice on the screen. So for example, there was issues with height on a staircase, yeah, and okay, you check your model, you work on your model in 3D already, but you don't notice it. As soon as you go inside, if you are in one-to-one human scale, you start noticing these issues naturally, yeah. So this is one thing, yeah. So it's way easier to quickly adapt to the scale and to find issues with your project there. So I think that's something that's really easily done within this. Storytelling, or let's say how to, I would, depends how you communicate as well, yeah, because if you want to show a sketch during a presentation, that's your way of doing it, it's okay. But yeah, if you find yourself fluid with this, and if you're talking to somebody else and you hand them a headset and you have 3 sketches of a project that you did, of a space, I think then it's way more direct, yeah, to way more precise connection to somebody's head, yeah. They see exactly what you had in mind, not a sketch that they have to interpret, so they can interpret it in a different way. So it could be tricky, because sometimes you don't want that. Sometimes you want to stay not so precise, yeah. So long story short, I think there's multiple, let's say, benefits to this, but they are not so clear and discovered yet, because we are not used to working with this so much yet, yeah. That's why I think it's so important to start trying it out. It's the same again as going from analog drawing to digital drawing. Some things will be painful and more, let's say, you will have to discover ways to do it efficiently, but what you get back in the end, it's something totally else. You get a lot of improvements, yeah, in some areas. I'm trying to think of a better example with the storytelling, but for now, for architects, I don't think I have a concrete example of this guy did his project in VR and these are the top 5 benefits, yeah, of this, for example. Not yet, not so far.
Yeah, thank you. We still have something around 15 minutes of the discussion. So if you have questions, you can raise your hand, or you can simply write it on chat. If there are no questions, I would say that that we can come to an end.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
Hey, Mikolaj, thanks so much for the lecture. It was super nice. I was wondering, I thought it's really interesting how critical you are, obviously, to Facebook, and like being so clear about like what's their kind of agenda or their interest in developing it. I was wondering if you have, or if you'd like to share some more insight in the other companies and like what's their kind of interest, or which market they're going for, apart from gaming and entertainment, where you think they might be employing it in the future.
Hey, Paula, thanks for the question. Very good question. Yeah, I'm critical. Yeah, that's my personal, let's say, maybe not critical. I said it's nice, but I think it's important to be aware of why they could be doing this. Yeah, what are the trade-offs? You agree to an amazing thing, but there's also some small print, fine print that you have to be aware of. So this is what I know coming from, for example, Oculus and Facebook. Valve, for example, as far as we know, it's in the business of selling games. So their intention is to make you to use Steam as a platform. So what they are doing, they have this own VR standard, let's say Steam VR, and to use this headset, you need to install Steam. And as soon as you have this store, you are probably to buy some software on this platform. So that's their clear motivation. These guys are also interested. They're a specific company because Valve is not publicly traded, so they are not controlled by shareholders. They really have their own money and they can decide how they spend it. And these guys, with their, let's say, interactive entertainment productions, tend to try to revolutionize, or they work on something when they are sure that they can make something really unique and amazing and revolutionary. And this is why I think they're investing in VR technology. They also released a VR-only game called Half-Life Alyx that is really considered to be, let's say, the pinnacle of, let's say, VR game design as far as we know it. So I think this is this guy's motivation, and to make you spend money on Steam, as far as I know. Google, for example, which is also in business of collecting data about you, they had their own VR project, Daydream, and they stopped it at some point. They stopped developing it. They said, okay, we don't pursue this anymore. I don't know what is their strategy. For me, it's weird that they are not investing in this space. It could be that they figured out, okay, maybe we'll do it whenever the tech is more advanced, or they don't want to take part in this. Vario, which I mentioned before, for example, I think it's a really small company that's really focused on making money on the hardware itself. So that's why it's so expensive, because they want to make money on the headsets themselves. So I don't think there's a lot of worry, a lot of stuff to worry about here. If we go to, for example, Vive or HTC, these guys developed this headset with cooperation with Valve Corporation beforehand, and they have the technology. After this first headset, Valve decided to make the second one on their own. So their interest is, okay, they have put a lot of money, as far as I know, they have to put a lot of money into this, developing this thing. Now they want to get some benefit out of it. So they're also selling you the hardware, basically. That's why also it's more expensive. Microsoft, actually, you could say that this, let's say, line of headsets, it's there, but it's not evolving so fast. And they did it probably not to get, let's say, not to stay behind everybody else, but I don't see them doing a lot of investment in this area. Let's say that's my impression. You can also say my feeling is that it's there, but it's not being actively pushed. Microsoft controls Windows 10, which is becoming more and more, let's say, software as a service, or it's becoming more also a platform that collects data about you, but it's free to use as an operating system. So it's something to have in mind as well, I think. And from the major players, these guys, PlayStation, they are in a business of selling you games, like $60 to buy a game. If that's a VR game or is a normal game, they are, I think, not so interested, but they want to sell you their own stuff. What is interesting, Xbox, that is also Microsoft. It's also not working on this kind of stuff. So they decided, okay, it's not relevant enough yet to push them into developing this for their, let's say, gaming consoles. But I think as soon as the player base, if it gets big enough, they will be interested as well. What I think it's also connecting maybe to this question is, for me, it's personally weird that, let's say, these companies are pushing so much into games, because gaming, let's say, on a monitor, it's also very nice. The VR games are totally different, but they don't provide anything. Okay, they provide more immersion, but let's say what I want to say, in industries, in architecture, in design industries, with VR technology, you get something totally new that was not possible before. So you get a real benefit there. And I think for gaming, I don't know if it's going to hit mainstream, but for design industries, or like, I don't know, learning or courses, or like preparing somebody to do some work, this is here, I think, to stay, because it provides some real value. But as you said, it's a very good question. With each of these companies, there comes a business model, and you have to think, okay, what they are going for. Why this headset is so cheap, for example.
Thank you. I hope that it was the right answer. For the question, we have something around 10 minutes more. There are 2 questions more. So please, like shorter answers, so maybe we'll manage to have even more questions answered. The first one from them is, have you tried the new NVIDIA Omniverse yet? And if so, what do you think about this concept?
We heard a lot of good stuff about Omniverse from our friends in design technologies at HDM. We have not tried it in production ourselves, but as far as I know, it's their objective is to really let me find it. Their objective is to bring all of the softwares together, yeah, to create a common platform that you can have somebody working in Rhino, for example, somebody working in 3D Studio Max, and they can see each other's things together in real time. I think it's a very idealistic approach. We tried it shortly. We have found no easy way, for example, to view the stuff in Omniverse using a VR headset. Maybe we didn't look hard enough, but that was something that got us not so much interested in this platform so far. I don't know if it's the solution. It's like the solution, you have 5 standards, yeah, they are competing with each other. So my solution is to do the one that will combine them all, yeah. So now you have 6 competing standards because you thought yours is going to be the solution. So NVIDIA is doing a lot of these small experiments and stuff. It's interesting. I'm interested in where it's going to go, but so far it's not a viable solution for us, not yet.
Cool, thanks. We have another new question. First one from Alexander Bennett. Which software would you recommend to just explore white models? So basically, probably it's to explore white models exported from Archicad. Which headset would you recommend for architecture student starting with VR? So kind of a beginner package, let's say, for someone who works with Archicad.
As far as I know, Enscape also works with Archicad. Enscape itself, let's say, if you want to pay for it, it's not so cheap, but if you want just to check out your designs, you have the free trial, and afterwards it should keep working as far as I know. So I would recommend this guy, works with Archicad. Let's see if the twin motion thing also works with Archicad. I think so as well.
That I can tell you already. I was doing the tests yesterday. And it's working smoothly on both, which is, I think we haven't mentioned that. One of the most important issues, I mean, you have talked about Apple and its lack of VR support, but maybe it's worth to say it again. The only VR software that is actually now supported by Mac OS and Apple is Twinmotion in this case. There is no Enscape support. You can of course do it with the virtual machine, installing Windows on your Mac, but then again the issue with the graphic cards and so on. Just to clear it out, because it's always an issue with the Mac users, and I know from my own experience in the office, I have a Mac version of Archicad, so I'm exporting it to the Twinmotion on Mac. And I'm taking the Twinmotion project to Windows laptop where I have my VR, and then it's working smoothly. So this would be the workflow. I'm sorry for the interruption, but I'm just fresh in the topic.
No, it's super cool, because we are not so, let's say, familiar. We are not working daily with Archicad, and I know this is a tool that a lot of people use in daily work here. And that's also true what it said in the chat, Gion, that Unreal Engine works on Mac. Sadly, the, let's say, Mac version of Unreal Engine is a little bit neglected, let's say. But if you say it works, that's amazing. I was not aware of it, that the fact that it works. And now, that's true. The version is there. And I just read that the trial for this is unlimited as far as I know for non-commercial stuff, so it should be pretty easy to get it running. But what Adam said, it's necessarily true. Let's say Apple has, you could say, has some amazing hardware, but sadly their GPU power or their, let's say, VR readiness, it's not there yet. Not sure why, but that's it. And as for the headset, if you don't care for the Facebook thing, I would say the Quest 2 right now is the best value proposition. Yeah, it's standalone, can work with the computer, connected with a simple USB cable. You don't really need the big storage version, like 64 gigabytes of storage is enough. So for 300 Swiss francs, you can get this. Yeah, a modern, let's say, smartphone is like this or way more expensive. So I think it's really affordable. So this is the Quest 2. There's also, if you want to get used, there's also, for example, a previous version of Quest 1 so-called. If you can get it used, for example, cheaper, it's also a good proposition. It can do the same as this, work standalone or connected to a PC. The only thing is the screens are a little bit worse, and let's say processor inside, it's not so fast as in this one, but this shouldn't matter if you are connecting it to the computer.
Yeah. We have one more question from Yael. So maybe you can.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation. Super cool, and the discussion. I just wanted to, it's actually a bigger question, but I saw some incredibly high-end, top of the line new glasses. And so now, as you mentioned in your lecture, you have, they're scanning your eyes and seeing where your eye movement is. They understand where your hands are, etc. So it's just, this is super cool as a tool, but then there is all this question about data, about all our human, and it's a completely different topic, because here you were talking about how we as designers can develop tools and exchange with our partners, etc. And I totally get it, but I just wanted to get your take on this, because I was so excited to look at these glasses and to be part of that presentation. And then when I found out what was physically going to happen to how we were being scanned all the time, and also because I had, all this memory space in my brain for as I was wearing these glasses, right? And it's always tethering between the computers and the server and the glasses. And I just thought, what what are the consequences physically of that?
It's a very good question. It's also something that concerns me a lot. Yeah, let's say all these data and privacy issues, you could say. So on one hand, this, for example, eye tracking, it's very useful for VR, because our eyes are made in such a way, or like we evolved in such a way that basically we see high detail only when we're looking. So if you had eye tracking, you could render everything else of a low resolution basically, and you could save processing power. You can have way more detail with way less power basically, yeah. But as research shows, for example, you are able to identify a person by the way they move, only with this, for example, VR headsets, with these simple controllers, yeah. After, let's say, looking at half a minute of movement data, you are kind of able to identify which person is using this headset to differentiate. And now if you add to it, yeah, you add eye tracking, you will add, for example, I know gesture finger tracking, which is happening right now. Out of this, you can infer a lot of information about a person. I don't know if they are depressed or not. I saw some research about this recently. I don't have a source for you right now, but basically the bottom line is, out of this biometric data, you can tell really a lot, yeah, about a person. What they're looking at, how long, yeah, their preferences, yeah, if they're troubled with something, if they're depressed, their sexual preferences, whatever, yeah, a lot of stuff you're giving away unwillingly, yeah, basically. And so that's why maybe I emphasize it so much with Facebook, because if you start connecting this, yeah, it gets really scary real fast. Yeah, if you keep thinking about this. So yeah, it's amazing. It's an amazing technology that transports you to another world. But as we are learning today with our smartphones, I think it's super important to be aware of what you are giving away by using this, and what the people looking at this data can tell about you, yeah, afterwards.
Yes, I mean, I think again, I think this technology, you're right, is going to become ubiquitous, and it's going to go fast, really, really fast, as you say. But I was thinking about, the children and their perception of the world if they start using these tools all the time to learn and learn how to read, etc. So it's a bigger question. Thank you so much for the lecture.
Thank you for the question, and yeah,
Thank you,
no problem.
For the interesting question. A little bit broader issue than VR only, right? A little bit political, sociological, but it just shows what is the real potential, how big the potential of virtual reality is, the technology is. Unfortunately, our time is up. I hope that there are no more questions, or that at least the questions that we have answered were enough for you to start experimenting with the VR if you have not yet. So yeah, hopefully everyone today, like 80 people, will play tomorrow with their own VR headset. Yeah, we encourage you to do this, apart from all the copyright stuff and private issues and so on. It's really great technology. I believe that especially for architects and designers, it will a little bit change the perspective on the process of design that actually happened already in the big companies like Herzog de Meuron. Thank you very, very much for the very interesting workshop, actually, with you. We will definitely invite you next semester, because we hope that, or we think that this is just the beginning, the VR on ETH and the VR for students as well. Yeah. What can I say more? Thank you once again. Thank you everybody that you have come to our lecture, and see you in virtual reality sometimes.
Sometimes, correct.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Have a nice evening. Bye.
Ciao.